Today's podcast is brought to you by StrongHeartAcademy.com, where no heart is no victory. We are also brought to you by BJJ To Go. If you want to build your game and learn jiu-jitsu, go to bjjtogo.com. Third thing we're brought to you by is Rat Bat. You got rats? Want to kill bats? Kill them with a rat bat. Fourth thing we're brought to you by is hot dog flavored water ingredients. If you want to add it to your smoothie, hot dog flavor ingredient. My second one I wanted to talk. I was thinking about talking about today. Was are you prepared for violence? So, I did a podcast. I just did a podcast about having balance, but also being prepared for violence. So there's a lot of people that's not their nature to defend themselves or be violent, and gender roles are a little bit blurred right now, but for the most part, the male was in charge of protecting the group, the family group, the group, tribe group, whatever. Very few times in history were females warriors. This doesn't mean they can't be or there aren't, but it's very few times. So there is still an expectation that if someone comes into your house, you're the guy. You need to defend your children and your property and your wife. It's not usually vice versa. It's not usually I hear a noise and I call my wife and I go, "Hey, go out there, go defend us." My wife would look at me like, "What are you talking about? That's your job. You're the one that gets shot in the chest or whatever." So, also, I hear like, "Oh, call the police," but the police times of getting to your house is so slow. The last time I called the police that there was a situation where I thought could have been dangerous was when I moved into a new house. The neighbor was actually, I think he was on parole for methamphetamines, and he had a methamphetamines house next to me. It's a really nice house too, and he had a giant knife on his hip. And my neighbor came over. I come home and like, our neighbor's home. He's not supposed to be there. He's not supposed to be on that property. Call the cops. I'm like, wait, what's going on? Why am I calling the cops? He's dangerous. And I was like, okay. Why aren't you calling the cops? I don't want him to know that I call the cops. Like, you want me to call the cops? The guy had a giant knife on his hip, like he thought he was like a biker or something. And I don't know, like, he was kind of aggressive. We called the cops and said he's got a felony warrant on he has a giant knife on his hip. The 911 is he dangerous? I'm like, I think so. He's got a giant knife on his hip. He's not supposed to be here. He's in some car, I don't know, which he could have been stolen. Who knows? It took them 10 minutes to get there. What if the dude pulled a knife and charged at me? I don't have 10 minutes. You'll bleed out in 10 minutes, just so you know. So you need to defend yourself. Even at the best times, I think it's like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Anyone that's wrestled high school wrestling knows that 2 minutes is an eternity. In jiu-jitsu, that's, at a white belt match is that's almost half a match. 2 minutes could be an absolute eternity when you're fighting for your life. And to assume that the cops are even going to be able to make it there in time is just not the reality of it. If they have a gun in my house, I'm not going to try to grapple the gun away from them unless I have to. So I recommend, you need to have some sort of self-defense training. But the problem is people will take seminars and do like a weekend and think that they know how to defend themselves. It's just like anything. Like, if you want to be proficient at it, you have to do it quite often. We do jiu-jitsu. I have classes 6 days a week at my gym or my academy. And, I have people that train almost every day. And you always wonder who's the best guys, or girls. It's the people that train every day. They're more proficient at it. They're more proficient at what they do. It's the same thing with boxing, Muay Thai, whatever. Uh, what I would call the real martial arts. Anything that you compete actively and you actually are trying the moves on at full speed without anyone, um, with them defending themselves, is a good martial art, in my opinion. Anytime you're in a martial art when they're like, grab my wrist, and then you do the move and they never resist, like they don't have another hand, just going to punch you in the face. Rule sets also obviously make what your martial art is going to be able to do, but like being able to adrenalize yourself, any combat sports, you get adrenalized, and being able to be calm in the storm is super important and effective. You can, when you're not thinking clearly, in my opinion, is one of the most dangerous parts of self-defense, is your ability to, think clearly and make the correct decisions. Should I be fighting? Should I be freezing? And should I be running? There are times you should be running. There are times you should be freezing, but more like hiding. We don't really freeze anymore, although that is an instinct, but you should be hiding, or running or fighting. There's no choice. You got to fight. If you couldn't run. But if you are surrounded, you need to hide. There's no running. You get caught or killed. So, when you're adrenalized, anyone that's competed before in any kind of combat sports knows this. The first time I encountered it when I wrestled, I was like, what? I played basketball on teams, and we played rough basketball. I mean, I played at Rose Mofford Park, where they're drinking while playing basketball, and it was rough, whatever. No blood, no foul, but it's not the same as when I wrestled. When I wrestled, that dude is trying to take your head off, and they go, like that, and you're not prepared, and then your body goes, okay, something's happening, and boom, you get this rush of adrenaline. You get auditory exclusion, you get, tunnel vision, time slows down, your motor skills get worse. So the moves that work need to be ingrained so that we're not really thinking them through as much if you get adrenalized. If you get adrenalized enough, you'll almost get used to it, and your body will go, oh, you are prepared for this. Your mind will go, okay, I know what to do here. And you get less and less and less adrenalized every time. You really do. So when you have a martial art that you actively compete in, or actively spar in would be a better word, that helps with your ability to deal with the adrenaline dump of the situation. I've been fortunate that, like, when crazy things have happened, I'm able to keep fairly calm and think things through instead of making a rash decision that might affect my life for years to come and doing something stupid. And this is also another thing that I think that the police departments need to work on more, is adrenalization, learning how to deal with adrenalized. Those guys are getting adrenalized all the time, and throughout a day you can have multiple situations that are violent or could be dangerous, or even just yelling. I did this seminar once where they called it wolfing, where the dude just berates you and he's just screaming at you, and you just have to hold your ground. There was no fighting involved at all, but you could feel yourself get agitated. And I would see people in line. We'd get in a line, and this guy was just, I think he had fun. He loved doing it. You would see people start shaking. I'm like, and that this is a real situation. This is just some person like acting and pretending or whatever. But he would start swearing at him, calling names, whatever you're tall, small, short, big, fat, skinny, whatever it was, he's picking at it. And just picking at it and yelling at you. And they'd get close to you, point their finger at you, get in your space. And you would see people like cower, freeze. People get agitated like they want to fight. And none of this was real. And that's, again, this, if it's a real situation, that's kind of like, well, how would I react to this? How do I de-escalate this? How do I, you know, where do I draw the line in the sand where it's not okay for them to come in my space? Where do I back away? When is it okay to turn around? Am I safe to turn around to put my back to somebody? So I don't want to be attacked behind. Those are things that you need to work on, that aren't talked about much. And then, the police department does a little bit of training like that, scenario training, but it's so little. And they don't. Most of it's on the job training. They go out there and they do that, and hopefully they have a good partner that's good. But if you have a bad partner, then they teach you bad things, bad habits. I don't know. That's a tough job. But as far as self-defense, it's funny how many people think they know how to defend themselves. And again, I believe so much of it is just that controlling yourselves in a bad situation is just as important as like the actual moves that you're going to do to defend yourself. A jab is a jab, but a jab isn't very good if you can't see properly, hear properly, and timing is down. Because a properly timed jab is devastating in MMA. Boxing, even that, it's pretty good in boxing because it sets up your power hand. But if your timing is off because you're adrenalized and your distances and your timing are all off, and now you're trying to perform a very simple task of throwing a correct jab, becomes way more difficult. And again, it's like the first thing you learn in boxing, is a jab. It's super effective, but that might go right out the window once you're not used to dealing with it. So if you're in a boxing program, you have to be doing some sort of sparring. Controlled sparring is better than just leaving you to the wolves and getting your butt beat by somebody that's really good, which is, sometimes that's good for you. But jiu-jitsu is the same way. Like the first time you're just flailing around, what is going on? And then like suddenly they're on top of you. You turn away because that's your instinct. They jump on your back. They start choking you. That's like you could write out a first class. That's what it's going to be like. Your first time rolling. Like you're going to push off. They're going to armbar you. All your instincts are wrong. So you need to learn how to like do it so much that there is no instincts. You have new instincts. You have new muscle memory, they call it, motor memory, where it's ingrained, that I don't have to think it out as much. And then the more you do it live sparring, the more you're used to like the jitters and that adrenalization where your body's in fight mode. But you need it like slightly lesser than fight mode. There's like a nice sweet spot in my opinion. I've also done it where I was too calm when I competed, like too calm, and I wasn't prepared and they just ran through me, I didn't crumble, but I couldn't get my heart rate up fast enough. I was too calm. So you gotta have, it's okay to have nervous energy, but not where you can't hear, you can't see properly, and your distancing and timing is all off. You don't want that. You want a good heart rate going, so your body's engaged, your muscles are primed, and your blood is pumping. But it's a hard balance. But if you're not training, you're not going to find all those things, So I highly recommend people. Obviously, I teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and we have a striking program too that's like incorporates kickboxing, Muay Thai, and boxing. But there's other things out there. If you have a gym near you or academy near you that does sparring, that's a good gym. If you have an academy that doesn't spar, I don't know what you're doing. Like, you're wasting your time, in my opinion. It's not a real martial art at that point. Like that allows you to feel the closest to realness as possible. Like Krav Maga will teach like eye jab pokes and ball stomps and all this kind of stuff. But I've had a couple of those guys came into striking before, and they're used to, which is also realism, it's like these 40-second blasts. 1-minute blasts. But when they spar with you and you know how to circle, they're very linear. They go forward, just run through them, and this is good. It's like shocking out, right through them. And I think most people, that's fine. But if you're a trained fighter, then you just circle around them. And I've never had a problem with a Krav Maga guy sparring ever, And then they wear themselves out because they go 100% within that 40 seconds, and then they got nothing in the tank. And I think it's probably good self-defense until you find a guy that knows how to fight. You're fighting a guy that knows how to fight. I don't think it's very good anymore because what is a special technique to eye gouge? Like, if we spar with eye gouges, no one would have eyes left. You know what I mean? If we're all ripping fingers off, everyone's fingers would be broken, and you wouldn't be able to get the reps in. It's not hard to just grab someone's finger, start ripping it off. It's not hard to bite. It's not hard to eye gouge. It's not hard to smash someone's groin. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being ultra critical of Krav Maga. But I do think there's value in it. I don't think there's no value in it. I just think that they are primed for ultra violence in a short period of time. And if they run into something that's a little bit more prolonged, I think that's when they run into trouble, and their groundwork is not very good. But I think they do get the generalization down, and they do understand the violence down. They got that down. So there's good parts, bad parts, like anything. I think jiu-jitsu runs into that too, is sport jiu-jitsu, when you're doing things that are only good for sport, not self-defense. But generally, if you learn the fundamentals of jiu-jitsu, you should have a good foundation that's fine for any kind of self-defense situation. And again, I think the generalization and the timing is the biggest thing. The understanding how joints work and manipulating someone's body while they're not letting you do it is just as important. Obviously, you're not going to invert in the street fight, but I think people know that you don't play deep half, maybe, on the ground. But I don't know. I think some guys don't used to it. Every once in a while, I like to throw gloves on and punch while doing jiu-jitsu. It's good. It's good for MMA too, to learn how to get hit and still grapple. But if I can hold you down, then I can punch whenever I want. Again, those are easy to add as well. So those are just some of my thoughts on, martial arts and generally what is the value you're looking for. Now, if that's it, self-defense, that's fine. But, there's other values in it, for working on your principles, working on your goal setting, working on friendship, working on networking with like-minded individuals, getting different opinions. I get in jiu-jitsu because there's different walks of life that come in here, different social, economic backgrounds than mine. But if we're talking just strictly how do I defend myself, I think jiu-jitsu, any kind of striking that spars is valid. I'm not trying to be a hater. I think any kind of martial arts you're doing and you're being active is good, and then the friendships that you get are great. But if there's no sparring, I see no value. And there's these jiu-jitsu schools that do that now. That you don't spar for long periods of time or ever, and they'll come in and I'm like, you don't know jiu-jitsu. You don't roll, you don't know. That's 100% factual statement. You don't roll, you don't know. So hopefully you guys are getting your rolls in, getting your sparring in. Chin down, eyes forward, hands up, grips, and let it rip. Peace.
Let me talk for just a second, help me feel that sense of rhythm. Find the meanings in our bearings and discover this position as a stage along the way. Another rung to the ladder, either stalling or you're climbing, and I'd rather be the latter. Instead of getting fatter, let the footsteps resume.